Business or Pleasure is the 9th episode of the first season of Back to You. This is, of course, directed by the brilliant James Burrows, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it's a pretty decent episode. It's definitely not my favourite, but I liked it, and I feel like we're just getting so closer to somebody finding out the truth about Chuck and Kelly's past. And honestly, there was a moment in this when I thought we nearly got there, and I will explain that moment in a bit. I'll go through the main narrative chronologically, but we also have a subplot involving Gary. I'll just talk about this very briefly. I don't have too many thoughts. Gary has to go to a furry convention, and he interviews or tries to interview a lot of furries, but he says some pretty rubbish jokes that the furries don't necessarily like. And we have this scene that I actually thought was really brilliant, where he's getting into his vehicle and a couple of them, the furries, gang up on him. And it's fine, he gets into the vehicle, and then a hand comes down on his shoulder, and it was genuinely so sinister. And I absolutely loved it. And then his final broadcast to the studio was full of hidden messages about him being in danger. Very, very well written, very well done. Not the most exciting narrative for me, but I think it worked quite well. The main story focuses on another character called Craig St. Clair. He's played by Koby Ryan McLaughlin. We only get to see a tiny bit of the character, but everybody is in a restaurant and they see Craig, who is an anchor for another channel, and he comes over to say hello, and we, the viewer, learn that he's actually looking for a co-anchor. And he asks Kelly for a drink, and Kelly says yes, but then Chuck, when they're back in the office, tells her that younger guys don't go out with legends. That's what he said when he realised he was about to refer to her as an older woman. And he realises that it must just be because he's trying to steal her from the station, because he does need a co-anchor. And then these ideas are obviously planted in Kelly's head. He doesn't want to date her, or if he does, why would he want to date her if she's older? Chuck, however, finds out that it is a date. It's a date. And it seems like everything's going to be fine. Chuck had interfered, but it's still happening. Problem solved for now. Chuck then has some alone time with Marsh, and Marsh asks him why he's so obsessed with this situation, and he says, is it because he's young and brash, or is it because he's young and brash and going out with Kelly? He, of course, being Craig St. Clair. And for a second, it genuinely seemed like Chuck was going to say something to Marsh. Marsh said something to the effect of, we've known each other for a very long time, you can talk to me. And there was this pause before Chuck answered, and I honestly thought he was going to say something. I don't know what. I don't think he'd come out with it and just say, I'm Gracie's father. But I felt like there was something almost there. And he just said, it's complicated. But that alone is admitting something. He didn't just say, no, it's got nothing to do with Kelly, I'm not bothered about that. He said it's complicated, which is, in my opinion, a step forward. It's a step in the right direction, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. I'll be honest, I feel like my original theory is that one character will find out, and then another character will find out, and it will go from there. I don't think they're just going to stand up in the office and just announce it to everybody at once. And if that theory is correct, then I think, just purely guessing, but kind of a gut feeling, is that Marsh will be the first to find out. I also feel like Marsh would be the person to not overreact the most. I feel like Gary would overreact, Montana would make a big deal out of it, Ryan would probably sweat a lot. I think Marsh is definitely the safest option, but we'll see how that goes, because it is still, well, relatively early days. We are, I think, over halfway through now, so I'm keen to see what the pacing is like for the rest of the season. Chuck then goes into the office, Kelly's getting ready for her date, and she's decided she's going to postpone it, and then she starts to worry that she is older, she doesn't know how to talk to him because he's so much younger, and she basically talks herself out of this situation. And then Chuck, to his credit, even though he was partly responsible for that in the first place, gave her a boost of confidence, and it was really lovely to see, and I genuinely believe that Chuck cares about Kelly way more than he is willing to admit. And I think he knows her. I think he knows her really well. We have a brief moment at the end of the episode when Chuck is in the office on his own, and then he opens the door without even looking at her and tells her to get going because he knew that she'd still be hanging out outside the office. And I just thought it was a really nice moment. So some really great moments in this episode. I do feel like we are getting so close to somebody finding out. And I feel like that somebody will be Marsh. I could be wrong. Honestly, don't mind if I'm wrong about that. But I'm looking forward to finding out. And for now, business or pleasure, although it's not my all-time favourite episode, was certainly still enjoyable.